That summer, being home alone had become a usual part of my routine. My parents worked late shifts at the hospital, leaving the house quiet and mine to manage. At 15, I enjoyed the independence, relishing the hours spent binge watching old horror movies or chatting with friends late into the night. Our house, modest and tucked away at the end of a cul-de-sac, had always felt safe. It was the kind of neighborhood where people knew their neighbors by name, and nothing truly bad ever seemed to happen. But that summer evening would change everything. It was a little past 9 p.m. when I noticed something peculiar while washing the dishes. Our kitchen window overlooked the backyard, which was separated from the neighbor's property by a waist-high wooden fence. At first, I thought it was nothing, the shadow of a tree, or maybe a trick of the light. But then I realized it wasn't just a shadow. A man was standing near the fence, his outline clear against the dim glow of the neighbor's porch light. He wasn't moving. He just stood there, facing my house, as though he was watching. I felt a chill creep up my spine. My first instinct was to rationalize it. Maybe it was just Mr. Gallagher, our elderly neighbor, out for a stroll in his backyard. But the man didn't resemble him at all. He was taller, broader, and unnervingly still. Even though I was inside, I felt exposed, like he could see me, though I was sure he couldn't with the lights on. For a while, I tried to ignore him. I turned off the lights in the kitchen, just to be cautious, and moved to the living room. But the feeling of being watched lingered. Curiosity, or perhaps sheer paranoia, got the better of me, and I found myself peeking through the blinds of the front window. My heart sank. The man wasn't in the backyard anymore. He was standing on the porch. At that moment, panic set in. How did he get there so quickly? And why was he here? I checked the locks on the front door, still secure. My mind raced as I considered what to do next. Call my parents? Text the neighbors? Before I could decide, the handle on the door rattled softly, and I felt a wave of dread wash over me. He was trying to get in. I stood frozen, staring at the door handle as it jiggled softly. The faint metallic clinks echoed through the quiet house, and my heartbeat felt deafening in my ears. For a moment, I couldn't believe it was happening. This wasn't something that happened in real life. This was the kind of scenario I'd scoffed at while watching horror movies just days before. Yet, here I was, facing the very thing I thought existed only on screen. Gathering what little courage I had, I stepped back from the door, careful not to make any noise. My phone was upstairs in my room, and I cursed myself for leaving it there. At least if I had it, I could call for help. Instead, I was stuck, unarmed and alone, staring at the door while the stranger continued his attempts to enter. Then, just as suddenly as the rattling had started, it stopped. The silence was worse. It was suffocating. I tiptoed toward the stairs, desperate to grab my phone, but halfway up, I froze. Through the narrow slit of the living room blinds, I could see the silhouette of the man retreating from the porch. Relief washed over me. Maybe he was giving up. Maybe he decided this wasn't worth it, but as I reached my bedroom and grabbed my phone, something caught my eye. A flicker of movement. It wasn't from the front of the house. It was coming from the backyard. My window faced the backyard, so I peeked out carefully, my trembling fingers gripping the edge of the curtain. The man was there, standing motionless once again, this time near the back door. He seemed taller now, more imposing under the dim light of the moon. His stance was deliberate, almost challenging, like he knew I was watching him. And then, as if confirming my worst fears, he bent down and began fiddling with the lock on the back door. I didn't hesitate. I dialed my mom, praying she'd answer. It rang 3 times before going to voicemail. My hand shook as I tried texting her, but the words blurred on the screen. Then I remembered. Our neighbors. The Simmons family lived 2 houses down and were known for being awake late. I typed a frantic message, explaining the situation and begging for help. As I sent the text, I heard a faint creak. The back door was opening. He'd gotten inside. I didn't know what to do. My pulse was racing as the sound of the back door creaking open sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt paralyzed. The house was silent except for the faint rustle of footsteps. He was inside, moving through the kitchen, and I was upstairs, helpless. My phone felt useless in my trembling hands. I knew I couldn't wait for the neighbors, or even my parents, to come to my rescue. I had to do something. The wooden floor of the upstairs hallway betrayed me with soft creaks as I moved toward my bedroom door, desperate to lock myself inside. I didn't make it far before I heard the sound of something sliding, a chair maybe, being moved across the tile floor downstairs. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. He was settling in, taking his time. It wasn't just an intruder. This felt deliberate. Whoever this man was, he wasn't in a hurry to leave. Clutching my phone, I dialed 911 and whispered into the receiver, barely audible. The operator's calm voice grounded me as I explained the situation, but I couldn't shake the feeling that help wouldn't arrive soon enough. The footsteps downstairs grew louder, pacing from room to room. I stepped back into my bedroom, closing the door as quietly as I could and locking it. My breathing was uneven, and my hands couldn't stop shaking. I hid in the corner, trying to think, trying to make sense of it all. The operator promised officers were on their way, but the minutes felt like hours. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. The silence was deafening, and every second that passed heightened the tension. Then, I heard something that made my blood run cold. My bedroom door rattled. He was on the other side. I pressed myself against the wall, wishing I could disappear. The door handle twisted, but thankfully, the lock held. The man didn't speak, didn't threaten, just stayed there, trying the handle as if he had all the time in the world. Moments later, I heard faint sirens in the distance. They were coming closer. The man must have heard them too, because the rattling stopped. I stayed motionless for what felt like an eternity before I dared to move. When the officers arrived, the house was eerily empty. There were no signs of the man. Not in the backyard, not in the house, nowhere. Weeks later, I tried to piece together what had happened, but no one could explain it. How did he vanish without a trace? And why did he target me? To this day, those questions haunt me, unanswered.